Welcome to Drive the Daf. Clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Pesachim Daf Kuf Yud Aleph continues the Gemara's ongoing discussion about Shadim, the demons, some evil spirits. And the Gemara now will list a number of places and activities that can cause one to encounter these Shadim, and that will put him in a harmful situation, particularly if he gets in the Shadim's way, or if he limits their access to what it is that they need, whether it's a place to walk, or access to water to drink. If he puts himself in any of these situations, it's dangerous to him, and the Gemara will list where the Shadim are found, how you might encounter them, how to avoid it, and also limit the situations in which there's cause for concern. So first of all, Rish Lakish says there are four things that if a person does them, his blood is on his head, is going to pay with his life. That is somebody who relieves himself between a palm tree and a wall, somebody who walks between two palm trees, somebody who drinks borrowed water, and somebody who passes over spilled water, even if his wife spilled out the water in front of him. The Gemara explains that the issue is as follows. The Shadim don't walk on the main road. They're not allowed to walk on the main road. They have to walk on the side road. If he's standing and leaving himself between the palm tree and the wall, he's blocking the path. So the Gemara says that's only if there's less than 4 amas space there. If there's more than 4 amas, you don't have to worry about it. Also, if there's another path for them to walk through, you don't need to worry about it. It's only an issue if you're blocking it. Now, the Gemara says, as far as passing between two trees, that's only when the main road doesn't pass between the trees. If they do, then the Shadim don't have a right to go there, and there's nothing to worry about. And as far as drinking water, it's only if someone drinks borrowed water, and it's only when the water was borrowed by a child. The Shadim tend to hang out over the water borrowed by a child. But if an adult borrowed it, it's not a problem. Even if a child did, it's only where it's in the field where there's no other water. But if there's other water there, the Shadim will go there. They're not going to bother you. And even in the field, it was only said about water, but not wine or beer. Now, as far as water that was spilled out, so you could avoid a problem if you throw earth into it or if you spit into it. Then there wouldn't be an issue. Also, if the sun passed over it or 60 steps passed over it, then you don't have a problem. Now, if you're riding a donkey or wearing shoes, there's also no problem. But all of these things only help in a place where there's no problem of kishuf. There's no witches or sorcerers around. But if those people are around, they will not help. Even where it brings incense of somebody who is riding a donkey and wearing shoes, and yet his shoes still shrank and his feet shriveled up due to some curse that was put on him. Okay, the Gemara now brings a brisa. Other things that one should not pass between, or one should not cause to pass between him and another man. Meaning you shouldn't pass between two of these, and this shouldn't pass between you and another man. And they are a dog, a palm tree, a woman, and some say a pig or a snake. Now there's nothing insulting about this. This is Tuma forces that has nothing to do with the nature of these things. Now, if somebody does pass between them, what should you do? So the Gemara says you should say 2 psukim in Bamidbar by Bilam's blessings. You should either say the one that starts with kale and ends with kale. Or you should say the 2 psukim that start with lo and end with lo. Lo ish kale v'yichazev ben adam v'yistacham. Ahu amar v'lo yihasev v'diber v'lo yikimenu. Lo yikimenu is ending with lo, starting in lo and ending with lo. Okay, further, the Gemara talks about women who might be performing some type of kishuf, some type of sorcery, some type of witchcraft. So the Gemara says you should not you should not let if it happens that a woman who is beginning her period passes between 2 men and there's some sort of sorcery going on, the Rishonim add, then if it's the beginning of her cycle, she will end up killing them. If it's the end of the cycle, she'll end up causing an argument between them. How do you get out of it? Again, say the psukim that start with kale and end with kale. Now, if you see 2 women sitting at a fork in the road, and one on each side of the road, and they're facing each other, there's some kind of witchcraft going on here between them. You don't want to walk between them, you should walk around. There's no other way to go around. then two people could hold hands together and go through. That'll protect them. If there's no other person with you, as you walk in, say the following things. Say, Agras, Azlas, Asiya, and Belusia have already been killed with a bow and arrow. Those are 4 shadim that the sorcerers often use, the witches often use. Now, Gemara says further, somebody who meets a woman when she's on the way out of the mikvah, if he is the first to be together with his wife, he will be possessed with a spirit of znus. If she is the first to be together with her husband, she will be possessed with a spirit of znus. What should they do? They should say, Shvoich buz al nadivim v'yaseim b'sayu loy dorech, a pasuk in Tehillim. Says of Yitzchak, what does it mean when it says, Gam kech v'geit samavas lo yiraki atoy madi? When I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I'm not afraid because you are with me. This is referring to a very shady area. The problem is that shadim like to hang out in the shade. They don't like the bright lights and the sun. So this refers to somebody who's in the shade of a palm tree, a lonely palm tree, or in the shade of the moon. Those are 2 places where shadim are often found. So now the Gemara says, this is only if there's no other palm tree around. If there's 2 palm trees, not going to bother you, he'll just go to the other one. And the Gemara brings a price. The Gemara says that the problem of sleeping in the shade of a tree is in a courtyard. Same before the shade of the moon. Now, in a courtyard, that's not the same as what Rabbi Yitzchak said. Rabbi Yitzchak said the problem is when there's no other tree around. So the Gemara says this proves that both are concerned. Either if there's no other tree around, or if it's in a courtyard. The reason is because the shade won't go somewhere else. If there's no other tree, there's no place else to go and stay in the shade. If it's in a courtyard, it's too tight. There's no room. He can't go somewhere else, even if there is another tree nearby. Okay, says the Gemara, this that we said about the shade of the moon is only when the moon is in the when the shade is in the west. That's the moon is in the east and the shade is in the west. But if it's the other way, the shade is in the east and the moon is in the west, not a problem. Gemara goes further and says that somebody who uses the restroom on top of a stump of a palm tree will be attacked by a shade called palga, which causes paralysis. If he leans his head on the stump of a tree, he'll be attacked by tzerada, which causes a headache or a laziness of the mind. Somebody who steps over a palm tree that fell down, if it was chopped down, he'll be killed. If it was uprooted, he himself will be uprooted and die. This only is true if he didn't step on the palm tree. If you step on the palm tree, then it's not a problem. So whenever you step over a palm tree, make sure you step on the palm tree. Says the Gemara, there are 5 areas of shade under which shadim tend to be found. One is the shade of a palm tree by itself that we already saw. A shade of a lot tree, a shade of a caper bush, shade of a sorb, it's a type of apple, and some say under a boat or in the shade of a willow tree. The rule of Gemara says as follows: anything with a lot of shade, with big branches, the shade is dangerous. Anything which has sharp wood, meaning it has thorns, is dangerous as well. There's a type of tree called a michru mishah, that it has sharp thorns in its wood, but the shade is not a problem. And the Gemara says you know this because it was a female shade that said to her son, go away from that tree, because the tree killed your father and it'll kill him, meaning it'll kill you as well. Rav Ashi said, I saw Rav Kahana stayed away from all shades. He was concerned that there may be shadim in the shade. Says the Gemara, shadim which stay in the shade of caper bushes are called ruche. Ones that are by the apple trees, the sorb trees, are called shida. Ones that are on the roof are called rishbei. Says the Gemara, who cares? The Gemara says if you're going to write a kameya, you have to know what to write. Now, the shade of the caper bush also has no eyes. Says the Gemara, who cares? The Gemara says you can run away from it and he can't chase you because it doesn't have eyes. There was once a Talmid Chacham who went to use the restroom by a caper bush. He heard the shade coming. He ran away. The shade tripped over the tree and grabbed hold of a palm tree. The tree shriveled up and the shade burst. Says the Gemara further, the shadim by a tree are called shidei, shady, shidei. The Gemara says that if it's a tree near the city, it has at least 60 shadim. Says the Gemara, who cares? The Gemara says you have to know how to write a kameya. There was once a certain watchman who went and stood in the shade of a tree near the city, and 60 demons went into him, and he was in big trouble. So Talmid Chacham came by, and he wrote him a kameya, but he didn't know that there were 60 shadim there, so he wrote for only one. So he heard the shadim in the tree singing a song, and they were saying this guy is wearing a hat of a Talmid Chacham, but you see, he doesn't even know how to make a simple bracha of Oiter Yisrael, even though he's wearing a fancy hat of Oiter Yisrael B'Sefara. because he doesn't know even how to write a basic Kameya. In the meantime, another Talmid Chacham came along, and he knew that there were 60 Shadim, and he wrote the Kameya for 60 Shadim, and then they heard the Shadim saying to each other, "Get your stuff out of here, let's get out of here before they kill us." Okay, now the Gemara discusses two Shadim that are mentioned specifically in the Torah. One is Ketev Meriri in Hazinu. The Gemara says that there are two types of Ketev. One hangs around before Chatzais, one goes after Chatzais. The one before Chatzais is Ketev Meriri, and it looks like a jug full of kimcha, a type of dip, and it appears to be a spinning mixing spoon. There's another one which is called Ketev Yoshet Sarayim, that's mentioned in Tehillim, and that is found in the horns of a goat, and it looks like a spinning sieve. Okay, some stories about Ketev Meriri. The Gemara says Abaye was walking, and he had Rav Papa on his right, and Rav Huna son of Rav Yeshua on his left, and he saw Ketev Meriri coming towards his left, and he switched Rav Papa to the left. So Rav Papa said, "Why don't you care about me? You only care about him." Abaye said, "No, your mazel is good now, you're doing well, you are wealthy, and you have bracha, therefore you won't be harmed." Another thing the Gemara says, from Rosh Chodesh Tammuz until the 16th day of Tammuz, the Ketev Shadim are around. Afterwards, we don't know if they're around or not, and they are found in the shadow of a Chatzuva plant, which is less than an am tall, and in the times of the morning, of the evening, when there's shadows that are not 1 amma long, which is something very short, obviously, because the sun is very low in the sky. And they're also found in the shadow of a bathroom. Okay, now the Gemara goes to things which will cause you harm. So Gemara says the following thing causes a person to go blind: if he combs his hair when it's dry, if he drinks wine that's dripping out of a barrel, if he puts on shoes when his feet are wet. Other things will make a person poor. If he hangs bread in a basket in his house, like people say, hang the bread, hang your parnasa. Where it says this is only true about bread, but it's not true about meat or fish, because that's a normal way of storing them. Somebody who keeps bran in his house brings poverty to himself, of course, unless that's all he can afford. Somebody who keeps crumbs, scraps, brings poverty as well. Somebody who you should also know, the Gemara says that on Shabbos night and on Wednesday night, meaning Friday and Tuesday nights, the Shadim hang out on these scraps of bread. Now there are two malachim responsible for parnasa. One of them is on supplying parnasa. He's called Nakid. He likes cleanliness. He wants a clean house. The one who gives poverty is called Naval. He's filthy. He likes the dirty house. So make a clean house, you'll have enough parnasa. A dirty house, you won't. Says the Gemara, somebody who drinks water from a plate brings an eye disease upon himself, which will cause his eye to disintegrate. Somebody who eats tchali, cress, doesn't wash his hands, will be nervous for 30 days. They'll have anxiety. Somebody who has his blood let, he does hakaza and doesn't wash his hands, will have anxiety for 7 days. Someone who cuts his hair and doesn't wash his hands will have anxiety for 3 days. Someone who cuts his nails and doesn't wash his hands will have anxiety for 1 day, and he will not know in all these cases why he is nervous and why he has anxiety. Somebody who rests his hand on his upper lip shows that he is sinking into anxiety, and somebody who rests his hand on his forehead is falling.
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.